On a moonless night, far from any shore, the sea whispered promises of doom, and the ship that followed them disappeared without a trace. The sea has always held secrets, but none as terrifying as the vanishing ship. Centuries of maritime folklore describe a ghostly vessel appearing in the thick fog of moonless nights, silently drifting across the haunted seas. Sailors who caught even a glimpse of it never returned, leaving behind only the echoes of their last cries, carried by the wind over endless waters. Captain Jonathan Hale, a seasoned sailor with an obsession for supernatural phenomena, had spent years listening to whispered tales of the ship. Now, armed with a mysterious map and the courage of curiosity, he assembled a small crew and sailed into the fog-bound ocean, unaware that the sea was alive with malevolent intent. The first night was deceptively calm. The waves lapped gently against the hull, and the wind carried only the faint scent of salt and decay. But as the sun vanished behind a bank of clouds, a creeping unease filled the crew. Shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally, merging with the fog, and the air grew colder with every hour. Late at night, a faint glow appeared on the horizon. It shimmered, flickering like a candle in the wind. Jonathan's heart pounded as the glow became unmistakable, a massive silhouette emerging from the mist. It was the Vanishing Ship. Its sails hung tattered and gray, moving as if stirred by a ghostly wind. Pale, unearthly lights danced across its deck, revealing figures that moved with mechanical precision. Hollow eyes stared, lifeless yet aware, and the creaking timbers groaned as though the ship itself were alive. The crew froze in terror. One sailor, compelled by curiosity or madness, stepped toward the ghostly vessel. His feet touched the deck, and the scream cut through the night. But then silence fell. Only a single wet footprint remained, fading into nothing. The realization struck Jonathan like a physical blow. This was no ordinary ship. It was alive, and it hungered for souls. As the crew debated retreat, the melody began. Low at first, a faint mournful tune drifting across the water, then growing louder, coiling around their minds. Each note seemed to echo their deepest fears. Shadows twisted into shapes that mimicked their movements, and whispers in languages long forgotten brushed their ears. The ship seemed to breathe, drawing them closer with invisible hands. Jonathan, driven by equal parts terror and obsession, ordered a smaller boat launched to investigate. As they approached, fog thickened, swallowing them in an opaque white veil. Shapes moved in the mist, silhouettes of long-dead mariners, instruments in hand, playing a song that no living human should hear. The melody clawed at their sanity, weaving a trance that made each sailor question reality. Suddenly, the water churned violently. Jonathan looked up to see the vanishing ship turning, sails billowing despite the absence of wind, its deck awash with spectral light. The air vibrated with an otherworldly resonance. Every man aboard felt the pull of the vessel, as if gravity itself had shifted. Panic spread, ropes snapped, and a wave swept over the smaller boat, nearly capsizing it. Jonathan clutched the railing, his knuckles white. He could hear the ship's whispers, promises of power, knowledge, and eternal life, but at a cost that made the blood run cold. One by one, his crew vanished, drawn into the fog, leaving only echoes and the chilling melody that seemed to originate from the ship's very heart. As dawn approached, Jonathan remained, alone on his small craft, staring at the spectral silhouette. The vanishing ship paused, its figure momentarily clear, a massive vessel with timbers blackened by age and malice, sails torn yet intact, ghostly mariners frozen mid-task. Then, as the first light touched the horizon, the ship disappeared. No trace remained but the memory of its cursed song lingering in Jonathan's mind. He knew with bone-deep certainty that the vanishing ship was not finished. Somewhere beyond the horizon it waited, patient and hungry, and those who heard its melody would never be free again. The fog thickened, wrapping Jonathan's small boat in a suffocating silence. And from the mist, the vanishing ship beckoned him closer, with whispers no living soul should hear. Jonathan clung to the edge of his small boat, trembling, heart pounding. The morning sun failed to pierce the dense fog, leaving the sea gray and unwelcoming. The vanishing ship had disappeared at dawn, but Jonathan knew it wasn't gone. Its presence lingered like a cold breath on his neck. Every creak of the hull beneath him, every ripple of water, seemed magnified, as if the ocean itself were alive and watching. He pulled out the mysterious map he had received months ago. The ink was faded, lines twisted in strange patterns, pointing toward a cluster of small islands deep in uncharted waters. Jonathan's obsession flared. He had to uncover the truth. The vanishing ship was not merely a ghost story. It was a vessel cursed, ancient and intelligent, feeding on the souls of the curious and the greedy. Hours passed as he rowed toward the islands, the fog thickening with each stroke. Suddenly, the air grew unnaturally cold. Jonathan shivered as pale figures began emerging from the mist around his boat. Their eyes were hollow, faces twisted in silent screams, limbs moving in disjointed rhythms. These were the mariners the legends had spoken of, souls trapped in the vanishing ship, doomed to perform its endless rituals. A haunting melody, faint at first, began to echo across the water. It was the same song that had tormented him the previous night, the cursed melody of the vanishing ship. The notes wove into his mind, stirring visions of the ship's deck, the tattered sails and the glowing symbols etched into the wood. He saw his crew again, screaming, pulled into the shadows, their eyes reflecting the void itself. Determined to survive and understand, Jonathan approached one of the islands marked on his map. The sand beneath his feet was unnaturally cold, almost burning, and the shoreline seemed to stretch endlessly. In the distance, half-buried ruins of a dock appeared carved from stone and timber, inscribed with glyphs matching those on the vanishing ship. The symbols pulsed faintly, as if alive. Venturing further inland, he discovered remnants of ancient rituals, weathered bones arranged in circular patterns, ceremonial daggers rusted with time, and carvings depicting ghostly ships and mariners being pulled into the abyss. The vanishing ship was no longer just a ghostly legend. It was a living nightmare, and Jonathan felt the cold grip of its curse tighten around his soul. The fog wrapped Jonathan's boat in suffocating silence. Each stroke of his oars felt heavier, as if invisible hands pulled him backward, toward the spectral deck of the vanishing ship.
The cursed melody reverberated through the air, vibrating in his chest, each note a sharp, icy talon clawing at his sanity. Suddenly, the water ahead churned violently. From the gray waves, the ship emerged in full, its tattered sails stretched impossibly high, timbers creaking like ancient bones. Ghostly figures moved with unnatural precision, performing tasks that seemed mechanical yet filled with malice. The ship's deck seemed to extend endlessly, an impossible labyrinth of rotting wood and flickering lights. Jonathan realized the full horror. The vanishing ship was a trap engineered centuries ago. Sailors who had sought forbidden power had performed an ancient ritual, binding their souls to the vessel and dooming them to eternity. The ship claimed new victims every century, drawing in the curious and the greedy to feed its unholy life. With a mixture of dread and determination, Jonathan leapt onto the deck. The wood felt alive beneath his feet, throbbing with a dark energy. Shadows stretched unnaturally, forming grotesque shapes that mirrored his every move. The melody intensified, now a cacophony of whispers, screams, and unearthly harmonies. He could see fleeting glimpses of his crew, twisted and tormented, trapped in ghostly loops of their final moments. Pushing forward, Jonathan navigated the ship's endless corridors, guided by the pulsing glyphs etched into the walls. He discovered the captain's cabin, a room radiating malevolent energy. At its center stood a ceremonial dagger, glowing faintly red, the source of the ship's curse. It pulsed in rhythm with the melody, as if alive, drawing him closer. Shadows surged, forming the figure of the ship's captain, eyes burning crimson, face twisted in eternal malice. He raised a skeletal hand, commanding the cursed mariners to attack. Jonathan fought through the throng of spectral sailors, each touch sending icy fire through his veins. The melody reached a deafening crescendo, and the ship tilted violently, throwing him against the deck. Jonathan grasped the dagger, feeling the malevolent energy course through his body. He understood that to end the curse, he had to destroy it here, in the heart of the ship's ritual chamber. The shadows screamed, the melody tore at his mind, and the captain advanced, a spectral phantom of centuries of hatred. Jonathan raised the dagger high, every ounce of courage and desperation converging in a single act. The ship shuddered violently, the cursed mariners closing in, the melody spiraling into an unbearable roar. One moment, one strike could either free the trapped souls or claim Jonathan as the next permanent prisoner of the haunted seas. The cursed melody reached a deafening climax, and Jonathan knew this was the final confrontation where only one fate awaited: freedom or eternal damnation. Jonathan's knuckles whitened around the ceremonial dagger. The cursed captain advanced, his hollow eyes ablaze with centuries of malice. The ship groaned as though alive, timbers twisting and warping, shadows slithering across every surface. The ghostly mariners surged forward in unison, their forms flickering between human and grotesque, singing in a language long dead. The melody pierced Jonathan's mind, threatening to shatter his sanity. Summoning every ounce of courage, he lunged toward the glowing pedestal at the center of the captain's cabin. The dagger pulsed in rhythm with the haunting song, radiating energy that both repelled and drew him in. With a cry that split the cacophony of voices, Jonathan plunged the dagger into the heart of the pedestal. Immediately, a violent shockwave coursed through the ship. The cursed mariners screamed, their forms unraveling into mist and shadow. The ship shuddered violently, planks splintering and timbers groaning, and the melody tore itself apart into 1,000 discordant fragments. The spectral captain recoiled, a scream of rage and agony echoing through the fog. Light burst from the dagger, washing over the vessel, consuming every trace of the curse. Jonathan stumbled back, the fog dissolving around him. The vanishing ship twisted and convulsed, its shape warping as centuries of malevolent energy unraveled. Then, with a final earth-shaking groan, the ship collapsed beneath the waves, sinking into the abyss, leaving nothing behind but calm, empty waters. Exhausted and battered, Jonathan swam toward a distant shore. The first rays of dawn cut through the mist, illuminating a world now free of the haunted vessel. The cursed melody was gone. No shadowy figures rose from the depths. Silence replaced the endless whispers. Jonathan collapsed on the sand, heart racing, lungs burning, but alive. The legend of the vanishing ship had ended with him, its curse broken forever. He had faced the darkness, endured its horrors, and survived. Though the memory of the ship and its spectral mariners would haunt his dreams, he knew that no sailor, past or future, would ever be claimed by this cursed vessel again. As he looked out over the calm ocean, he felt a bittersweet relief. The haunted seas were still vast and unknowable, but the vanishing ship, the nightmare that had loomed over centuries, was finally gone. The ocean whispered only of peace now. Its dark song was silenced.